Hey all, this is Owen Tuboku, and
You enter this review with the key of your nerdiness. Welcome to a dimension of fandoms and weird rabbit holes. Welcome to the Slightly Stupid Zone. Do 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 do. And I'm Mr. Jackass.
which I also like to call idiotic entertainment, but yes, that is Jarek the Jackass, and we are back to hopefully try to finish. We should, if we can fit it within an hour again.
Hopefully.
And I liked how 37 of you have watched part one, so thank you very much. But part two of the pilot of Twin Peaks, and we are back with that to basically go where we left off. Now, as you said, we forgot about Dr. Jacoby. We mentioned that last time. I just reviewed that right now to know where we last left off.
Oh.
My dog getting comfortable back there. Hello, Hockey.
Yeah.
And all the good stuff. But we left off, and as you remember, they go into the investigation parts of it to where, basically we can focus on the two characters that they focus on. First, they're with James, and they're being very hard hitting on James, forthcoming but hard hitting. They're trying to, use questions to get him to slip up, yeah, I would say Truman was being the good cop but tough, and Cooper was being the bad cop and very tough. Because when Bobby was getting argumentative with them, he's like, you answer our questions briefly and to the point, Bobby. We don't care. But why should we care? You didn't love her anyway. And then,
Yeah.
he shows him, because what Jarek mentioned that I forgot, the camcorder video they found, they hooked up to an old TV. All of a sudden, it's where Donna and Laura are having a picnic, someone's shooting this video, and there's this shot where they focus on Laura's eyes, sort of like that, where she's looking at the camera, but she gets way closer than I was. They don't show you it yet, which, this is funny on a 1989, 1990 camera that they call this, but the camera gets very close to her eye. Bobby leans in, he sees something, he does like that, like he notices something, and he's like, no, never. She would never do anything or date anyone other than me, because that was one of the questions. Was she seeing anybody else? Was she doing drugs? Was she cheating on you? And as soon as he sees whatever's in that photo, he's like, no, she would never do that to me. And then, he actually types into this one calculator to Truman, because Truman thinks it probably was Bobby Briggs, but Dale Cooper types into the calculator and puts it to Truman saying he didn't do it. So, they somewhat let him off the hook, but they're watching him.
Yeah, it's kind of funny because this is something you only really did with old school calculators back in the day. You could actually write, they looked so much like letters if you flipped it upside down, which is what he did. He typed in the numbers and then he flipped the calculator upside down, and it says he didn't do it.
Yeah, except I don't think it would have been that perfect back then, but that was a nice effect that he did it like that. Because usually on calculators you didn't get H's to look like that.
Usually not, but
and D's too, D's as well. N's and other ones you can make out, but yeah, those H's and D's are a little too perfect.
But another neat technical thing they pulled off with this was the camcorder, because a lot of newer camcorders actually have better recording effects. They actually have have special lenses, filters, and lighting features that basically prevent the sort of reflective trick they pull off in this episode, but the older ones didn't have those. And since we're using an older model, albeit a nice one for the time period, you do get that nice little reflection in the eye, which I told them, isn't this a clever little thing? The eyes are the mirror of truth. It's like, oh, look at that. What's that in her eyes?
Yep. And Jared got a tad bit ahead there, but that's okay. They also interview Donna. Donna doesn't give much up to, but you can see how they show her the video. She's getting all sad and upset over it. Also, while this is going on, Snake/Mike is sitting out there. Basically, there's two Mikes in the show. There's Mike Snake, who's Bobby Briggs' best friend and football player, and then there's Mike, the one-armed man, who is like another Oracle type character to the show, who we'll get into more later on with each passing episode. But Snake slash Mike was outside waiting for Bobby. He's talking to him. The older saying, "Hey, I'm okay," but he's like, "You know what? I found out that she was saying someone with the initial letter J, and some biker is gonna get his head kicked in." All of a sudden, they heard the typing stop, and it was Lucy also writing down and typing what they said. What's up, Jim?
That reminds me. Keep going. I got something I was going to bring for this.
Okay, and I will keep going. And as you know, when they're done with Donna, and Donna, as you could say, Donna Hayward is very distraught and emotional during this. All of a sudden, when she leaves, you have Lucy come in and trying to tell Truman and Cooper what she overheard Bobby say. She was doing it in her regular ditzy talk, but then all of a sudden is like, "Lucy, let me stop you right there." They were saying something about beating up some biker, right? And she's like, "Yeah," and Truman's like, "How did you know that?" That's where we get to what Jarek was talking about. He sort of fast forwards the video right to where it's right smack center on her eye. And I don't know how he saw it on that old time TV. If they had a big screen TV, I could see, but it was one of those old box TVs. He sees the reflection of the bike in Laura's eye, and it's like movie magic there. But again, this film focuses the show focuses a little more on the spiritual essence of things. But again, it's how you get that on that old box TV, I don't know. But he saw it, James's motorcycle in the eye. Oh, plus that, this is where they also discover the locket that Laura Palmer had, because they found the first part of the locket in the safe deposit box. I forgot about that. And James has the other half if he's on a side road, near the mountains of Twin Peaks, just like holding the locket in his hands. So James has the other half of. Oh wait, that's what I forgot, because we forgot to mention when they go to the train car. That's where they find the locket, because after they do the investigation, they go to the train car where Ronette Pulaski and Laura Palmer were taken, tortured, and Laura was killed, to where they find, bloody hammer. Now, just to let you guys know, it's like in this one, they were making it look like a hammer. Hammer's pretty brutal, but I believe in Fire Walk With Me, plus later on, when he was killing Laura, I do believe it's like scissors or a knife or something, because she does get stabbed to death. But I think in this one, they were thinking a hammer was pretty brutal, because they found a bloody hammer at the scene. And I'm like, no, it later became a knife, didn't it? And then,
well, that's because, they initially forgot to clean up all the evidence from the Paul Pelosi case.
Whoa!
But,
exactly.
A friend of the channel let me borrow his Letterman jacket from high school. I saw what's his name, Bobby's, not Bobby's, Mike's, because he's wearing it all the time. And this is like one of those old school ones. It's still got the old material. Yeah, my friend apparently was one of the few guys who actually got a letter in academics. Yeah, he was actually one of the guys who got one of the first letters in academics in Arizona.
Very cool.
In fact, if I remember, I think he was like the very first one in his school, and he got 2 letters in drama. Nerd!
Indeed.
But seeing that jacket, I was just like, hey, I know a guy who's got one of those. Tunnel snakes rule.
Yep. Tunnel snakes. Oh, wow.
Been playing too much Fallout 3.
No, you have been. But hey, that's a good game. But, as you can imagine, they find, like I said, the bloody hammer, which later I think will become a knife again. I'll definitely be watching those scenes closely, because I think she was definitely stabbed to death. But they find the bloody hammer, and they find where, it leads to a mound of dirt with the locket on it, but right next to it, a piece of paper that's pretty famous to the show that just says, "Fire Walk With Me." And that's where Cooper tells Truman, when they're in the train car, we got to find the other half of the heart. They cut then to the town hall meeting, to where, they're talking about Laura, and besides some, antics with the mayor being old and trying to fiddle with the microphone, and is this thing on? Is this thing on? Now, in a deleted scene, you had Truman help the mayor, but they cut to it to where he's helping him sit down, but he actually helps the mayor with the microphone, and the mayor says some heartfelt things about Laura and how it hurt the town and how they'll all miss her. And I could sort of see why they cut that out because they probably wanted to keep the mayor a bit more bumbling. But at the same time, at this point, we know how much Laura Palmer meant to the town. She was a very well respected person or figure for what the people do. So that's probably why they did it too, was for timing.
And if I remember, wasn't like Cooper there and that one? I think it was Sheriff Hawk was explaining to him how, yeah, they have a mayor, but the town is basically owned by like three different individuals with large business interests.
Oh yeah, but it wasn't Hawk. That was Truman. Who was next one.
Truman.
Truman was telling him, yeah, because that's where we get a quick thing. They talk about the log lady, Margaret Lanterman, who's flicking the lights on and off to get everybody to quiet down. But they focused on, the three main people in the front. Jocelyn Packard, who owns the Packard Sawmill. He asked about the husband. The husband died in a boating accident explosion a little over a year and a half ago. You had Catherine Martell, who's, they say, the original Deep Freeze, who owns the other half of the mill with Jocelyn, but Jocelyn basically has the full control of it. And then we see, Ben Horn, who comes in, kisses Jocelyn's hand, and gives a little bit of a thing to Catherine. And, he's like, yeah, there's Ben Horn, who basically owns the other half of this town, besides the Packards. And, basically you get right in the front row all the three bigwigs with the most money. And then, sadly, there's Pete, because Pete has a piece of the pie, too. But, they basically, everybody sort of abuses Pete. You'll sort of see what I mean by that as time goes on, because Pete Martell's really a nice guy, just caught in the middle of all this crap. And I always feel so bad for him.
And I love how they kind of point out that the mayor's really just kind of a figurehead, he's just there for like the appearance of law and order. It kind of I told him, it's like, this reminds me of a certain show I used to watch as a kid. The city of Townsville is in danger. Quick, call the Powerpuff Girls.
Well, exactly. I mean, that's basically the thing, because Dwayne Milford probably does that's the mayor's full name, Dwayne Milford. Dwayne Milford probably doesn't have a whole lot of power. Now, when we get into the books, the Milfords were way more important to the town than we all thought, because Mark Frost's books explaining the history of Twin Peaks gives a lot more, especially on Dwayne Milford's brother, who we'll meet later in season 2, Dougie Milford, Douglas Milford, who owned the paper in the town. He was into a lot more governmental things, but like I say, when we get to the books and we start reading those and reviewing those, we'll definitely, have a lot more to talk about. Those books will probably have to do in pieces, because there's a lot of information.
Yeah.
And those probably maybe half hour, or like we do here now, an hour thing, because man, those books are probably going to take a while to sift through, because Mark Frost puts a lot of historical facts plus historical fiction into these books. But again, that's what makes this all the more cool, is how he blends the two. And probably, I'm going to say David Lynch helped preside over these two, because, David Lynch did the shows. Mark Frost was also present, but Mark Frost was also doing these books at the same time. So these guys did a lot of work, and it's really sweet how both Mark Frost and David Lynch really, well, David Lynch said it in one of the special features I watched on the Blu-ray version of the show that I own, where he says, regardless of the changes he did not agree with, he loves the characters in the world of Twin Peaks. And I'm like, see, that's the main thing that matters. Regardless of the changes he did agree with, he still loves the world that was created. And I'm like, see, that's nice, because so many other people just throw their stuff across, but the fact that David Lynch still cares about it is really cool.
Well, to me, with like how much the books expanded on a lot of the characters and a lot of the smaller intricacies of the town, I would almost consider the Twin Peaks novels to be like the Robert Jordan Wheel of Time novels. There's no wasted individual or character. Everybody has a role.
Everybody's important.
Or for those of you who don't know what Wheel of Time is, maybe the better analogy would be the Star Wars novelizations, especially back when the EU was still canon.
Yes, and I agree with you on that, because every character has an importance, and that's what I love how both David Lynch and Mark Frost is getting at, is yes, there's characters who are more important than others, but every character has a purpose to somebody in the show. And that's why you have to love multifaceted, multi-character shows, because it is hard to keep up with everybody. But again, everything, even some of the minor characters, are affected by some things. You'll see what we get as we continue the show, probably the books and stuff later on. As what's funny is we're sort of got off there by a sidetrack, sorry about that. You have Cooper begin to speak, and Cooper says, we're going to impose a curfew because we want people to be safe, because sadly the reason the FBI got involved is because this case bears very similar things to a girl named Teresa Banks who was killed, I think they said, in a few counties over. And well, basically, I'd say probably not a few counties, maybe a county over, because there's this trailer park that'll become synonymous and Fire Walk with Me and season 3, that's just like a little bit outside of Twin Peaks, and she lived there. I don't think she was living there when she was killed, but she lived there, and what happened is that Teresa Banks, he says it was this girl that nobody knew, no, she had no family apparently, nobody came to claim her body, but she was killed in the exact same way with details I can't disclose yet to this case, but it's just very similar and we want people to know. And it's the FBI's belief that the killer is somebody from this town, possibly even somebody you know. So just whatever you find, step forward, help us figure this out, help us solve this case. And at the same time, we have stuff to where, on a side note, because Nadine is fiddling with their drapes and Ed, is just sort of annoyed with Nadine and her drapes, he actually gets a call from Norma to where they're going to meet up at the Roadhouse. At the same time, I forgot when Donna went to see Ed gave Donna this note that said, meet James at the Roadhouse. So you have James going to the Roadhouse. You have Donna sneaking out of her house, causing trouble for Dr. Hayward. You have I'm going to say, obviously driving on the road, a drunken Snake Mike and Bobby Briggs.
Yeah.
Trying to find Donna. Dr. Hayward is concerned. Harriet, Donna's sister, covered for her. Doc Hayward finds out really quick what happened. They basically talk to Truman and Cooper, who at the time are staking out the Roadhouse, and they put out an APB on Donna. Donna shows up at the Roadhouse.
It's actually kind of a funny scene, too, because Dr. Hayward asked him, I think my daughter's headed to the Roadhouse, and I think it was Cooper who kind of lets out that they already had their suspicions she was going to go to the Roadhouse. They were already going to stake it out.
Yeah.
Which kind of shows just how much of a thinker Cooper is. He knew Donna was going to sneak out to go see James at the Roadhouse. He knew it was going to be the Roadhouse. This guy's a clever little shit, I'll tell you that.
While he's making a whittling wood whistle, and he's like, in a town like this where yellow lights mean slow down and not stop, and green lights mean go. I'm like, yeah. And anyway,
well, when I saw that scene, and I'm like, yeah, somebody likes Darkwing Duck. It's like, what are you doing, Darkwing? There's only one thing we can do in a situation like this, Launchpad. We wonder, we wait, we whittle.
Yep. And then, no, that's a good point for it, and very good point actually, because that's sort of like what it represents is that we have to wait for this case, wait for avenues to open up. Also, as you probably saw in the thumbnail, they focus on, because you saw James on his bike with the stoplight. That stoplight will become very symbolic throughout this entire show, the movies, and season 3. So I probably won't reveal it yet, but probably after another few episodes when we get deeper into this and they show it a bit more, I'll basically discover what me and my friends have talked about that en masse regarding the stoplight. But I won't mention it now, but that actually does play an importance to the show, at least to me. I mean, it has to, because David Lynch focuses on it a lot, probably Mark Frost as well, his idea too. But as we have this, Donna shows up at the Roadhouse. You have, Ed and Norma talking about how, because you can see these two were in love. Something didn't work out yet that we didn't know, because apparently Norma's married to a man named Hank Jennings, hence why her last name is Jennings. They're talking about how he's in prison, possibly going to get parole, and then they sort of toss a little fun at Nadine. We don't know what Nadine and Ed's thing is, but they toss a little fun at that. And then Donna comes in. Bobby and Mike Snake are at the Roadhouse. All of a sudden, Mike Snake looks over and goes, Donna, and then goes up, grabs her, saying, what are you doing here? Why are you sneaking around? And almost looks like he's about to get violent with her. Ed stands up, tries to go over to stop it, but then all of a sudden we see him do this little teeter-totter dance, to where he looks like he's like, ugh. And then that's where, in a bit of a hilarious, sort of weird choreographed bar fight, Bobby comes over, socks Ed, and then a couple other bikers named, I think it was Joey and Brian, were at the bar because they noticed Snake Mike and Bobby come in, and then they start possibly getting in the fight. Joey actually doesn't get involved. He takes Donna out the back while they're doing that. And plus, what I love too, one of the people in the fight is this one woman biker. She just gets shoved by Mike, but then she's standing up, taking a few shots of him in the ribs, and I think eventually she does climb on the back of him.
You know what that scene reminds me of? That reminds me of like that bar fight in Airplane with the Girl Scouts.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, the Vietnam bar fight, yeah. Oh
yeah.
Yeah, and then that's where flipping Staying Alive and that whole hilarious scene begins. Such a great film. Can't wait to review that one too. But no, absolutely. But bar fight ensues, and then that's where Truman and Cooper see what's going on. They basically call the cops to have 2 units show up to help quell the fight. They start chasing after Donna, who they see is on Joey's bike. As they're chasing Donna, they're wanting to stay back, not get too close. Joey actually takes Donna off a side road that's a service road to the Packard sawmill. Cooper and Truman miss it, and they keep going. All of a sudden, they're wondering, okay, how do we lose them? And then, Cooper looks down, he's like, is that a service road down there? He's like, yeah, that's the Packard sawmill. The entrance is, 5 miles back in that other direction, so they have to backtrack. All of a sudden, Joey stops at the end of the service road to where James is already there. They get off with Donna, and then whole conversation about how, Laura ensues about how Laura was a weird girl. Laura told me that her and Bobby killed somebody and that he's buried somewhere out here. And, she was so weird. She's like, there's things you don't know about me. There's stuff that even Donna doesn't know about me. And then Donna's like, well, I knew her. I understood her, because it's like she doesn't fully believe James, and then he tells her the locket, how I have the locket, but I also don't have an alibi for me because Laura was with me that night, and she just jumped off the bike at Sparkwood and 21 near that stoplight, mind you, where that stoplight is, and she just jumps off, and she said, she was her again, where she hugged me and said, I love you, James, and just ran off. And then, believe it or not, James and Donna kiss to where it's like, I'm sorry, what did I do? Oh, actually, I changed my mind. I'm not sorry. And then, they're still making out, but then all of a sudden, James is like, well, let me take this lock and turn myself in. And Donna's like, no, don't do that, because you'll incriminate yourself further. She's like, well, bury it. And then they bury it right where they're standing and cover it with a rock in the dirt. All of a sudden, they take off, and Truman and Cooper on their way back find James. They arrest James, take him in, and Donna's like, he didn't do anything, And then, sadly, to make matters a little worse for James, James gets brought into the police station. Donna's there. Donna's not getting arrested, probably because she's hopefully not a witness to anything, but they're basically mainly arresting James. And sadly, which me and Jarek talked about right when we watched it, to make matters worse, she's whispering to him, talking about him, don't worry, we'll figure this out. I'm like, you realize Truman is right there looking between you two, being like, knowing that you guys have secrets.
I think the phrase the cops would use for Donna being detained there would be a material witness to a potential case. Not necessarily the one they're investigating, but could have leads or information that would prove useful. Standard police shit.
Yeah, and then basically what happens is they lock James up. Mike, Snake, and Bobby Briggs are there, and they're saying, oh, well, look who the cops brought in, and, good night, officers, and all this play. And in a very creepy scene, it's like Caged Animals, where Bobby is in a corner cell to the opposite side of them, and then Mike, Snake, and Bobby are in the other corner to the opposite side of him, and you have James looking scared at both of them, and then you have Mike and especially Bobby just looking at him with these predatory looks. And then Bobby just says, when you least expected, and then they both start barking at him, and then
It's kind of similar, like if you've ever worked at a kennel, like when you've got two different packs of like hunting or predatory dogs. Like if there's one that's more alpha than the other, you'll see them kind of like pace while maintaining a constant stare until they like start doing the bark. It's eerily like that. It's like a pack of wolves just staring down prey that they're intimidating before they go in for the kill.
Yes, absolutely. And then what's funny is during their bark, you have James like showing subtlety that he's getting more scared, and then all of a sudden it does a close up of Bobby's mouth where he just sounds where he like we hear him give like a pain scream, but actually it becomes like a fair one where he's like, oh, and I'm like, every time I see that, that is just so creepy, but that is pure David Lynch showing how the demonic side or the dark side of people and just how we can lose it with things. Plus, the way that Bobby was staring at James, just like, I can't recreate it, but it was just this I fucking hate you look.
No, man. He's just a big Fleetwood Mac fan. He was going full Stevie Nicks.
Okie doke. What is that a reference to, Joe? I don't get
You remember that South Park episode where they had that goat and they were like, hey, make some room. Stevie Nicks coming through. Man, big fan. Can you do some Fleetwood Mac for us? Bah, she still got it.
yeah. Pretty much. I get it now. Well, and that's where that happened. And, Doc Hayward gets Donna back. He said, you promised to put some air in her sister's tire, I understand. Let's do it. And then, Doc Hayward basically, that whole little scene between them is like how you're our daughter, we don't want anything to happen to you, but we also want you to know if you have anything to tell us or anybody else, please tell us. Don't keep any of this a secret, because Dr. Hayward, you can tell, is worried about the people in this town because obviously they've never experienced something like this. And given that he's a pretty damn good doctor himself, he knows that this could possibly lead to other bad things because this town has never experienced anything like this before. So he's taking this pretty seriously, which is, I can understand. And we have a couple more, nice funny scenes, like Lucy set up donuts for all the cops and stuff like that. And he's like, oh, a policeman's dream, Cooper goes. And, Truman gives him
donuts.
Yep. And Truman gives him a rate at the Great Northern where he just wanted a moderately priced hotel and and possibly TV if he could knock off early and a good place to sleep. He represents the Great Northern. Cooper heads to the Great Northern, and then right near where the show is ending, we have Sarah Palmer who's trying to relax and sleep on the couch. All of a sudden, we see in between the shots of Sarah Palmer, somebody walking through the woods/forest, and then all of a sudden, we see her again, still rocking there. All of a sudden, the camera stops on the rock and dirt pile where James and Donna buried the other half of the locket. All of a sudden, you have Sarah Palmer sit up and go, she's like starting to scream, and it's a little thing because David Lynch meant to do it. It was accidental, but he wanted it left in because after he was there, this is where Bob comes into the story. We see a little snippet of Bob in the window, Frank Silva, who was actually the production manager on the show, who was there just standing there on accident in a mirror on the wall. And like the production crew wanted to redo that scene because Bob was there. And David Lynch is like, no, leave it in, I like it. And then that's where he asks Bob, he's like, hey, do you want to be a villain? He's like, sure. And that's where Bob was originally born.
You know what I just realized while talking about this?
What?
I think I have an idea for what may have been like the allegorical inspiration for this whole Laura Palmer angle, and it just hit me. It's the Marilyn Monroe case. The girl that everybody thinks they know, but they don't, got a little mixed in with drugs, the bad crowd. It was one of the big defining loss of innocence moments in North America. I can't believe that I just barely came to that conclusion right now.
Yeah, well, that too, and also what's another big Hollywood one that was never really solved or understood, the Black Dahlia murder. That would be another one. Like, you could basically say that there's several instances to Hollywood murders to this one too. And as you see, I gave a little snippet there to Bob. We don't know it's Bob yet, but I just wanted to give that case because this is where Bob was born. And it was after they filmed that scene, because there's actually an international version where we see Bob and Mike early, but, you know, it was the European version where they wanted some finality to it, where if the show wasn't going to take off, they would have re-released this in America too. That gave like sort of an ending to where we would find out that Bob did kill Laura. But like I said, that was only an international version, and if the show would take off, they would incorporate that, but in a different way. And obviously it took off here, so they did. But that's how it ended in Europe. So I guess in Europe it has a little bit of finality to it, but it's still weird and makes no sense.
And going back to what Loku said, pay very close attention to that one street light that's always featured in the show. Pay attention to what color it is in conjunction with like who's there at the stop sign at what point.
Or who they're talking about, because it's always when they're talking about certain characters or finding out certain clues to the case.
Because if you look at like which light is on at the time, you get a pretty good idea of what he's trying to get at. And also, this is just one of my weird little theories. My Twin Peaks theories. Thanks for watching. There are various areas that are kind of, in my opinion, definitely like little mini hubs for the two different lodges. And for me, like, I kind of notice the Roadhouse sort of alternates and flickers between white and black, but it's definitely one of the more important areas.
Mm-hmm.
You can tell like the Double R is kind of like one of the more good areas. The Great Northern is definitely in the pocket of the Black Lodge. The Sheriff's Station is definitely the White Lodge location.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, you're going to notice there are areas where good things either are supposed to happen or good things will never happen.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, just be aware of that. There is a bit of a struggle going on, a battle between, I don't know, light and darkness for the souls of the people there.
Mm-hmm. Well, not only that, I know we went on a little tangent about Bob, but that's why I wanted to bring it up. But also, I think Sarah Palmer sees this in her dream too, where somebody gets to where Donna and James buried the necklace. He moves the rack over, moves back the dirt they just buried, and takes out the locket and takes it with him. So that's where the first episode ends, and it's like, huh. And again, none of the, like, a little bit of weird stuff happened in this one, but nothing as much as when the show continues on. So this is just the setup and the tip of the iceberg this pilot movie was. But again, after because when my folks got this with me, the original DVD releases was, the pilot was a thing by itself, and then if you got seasons 1 and 2, the shows started at season 1 and 2. That's why I'm glad they started making whole collections of the show that had the pilot movie, that had seasons 1 and 2, because when this was first released, the pilot was by itself, the seasons 1 and 2 were by themselves, so I'm glad they've made whole collections with the entire thing, because when you miss a little bit, you're like, wait, what the hell's going on here? And then when you see it as a whole, it's like, this is damn good. So believe me, if you want to get this and own this, or I believe they have the entirety of Twin Peaks on Paramount.com. But again, you guys already know my thing of streaming services, so a little iffy on that. But if you want, I believe you can find it on Paramount.com too.
Hey, that reminds me, what's Laura's boyfriend's full name? I know it's like James something.
Why, James Hurley, or are you talking about Bobby Briggs?
Like, who's the one she was dating, but the one she was with before she died?
Oh, James Hurley. Yeah, that was James.
You know what I just realized?
What?
It's a reference to James Dean.
Well,
Troubled kid, leather jacket, rides around on a motorcycle,
yeah,
gets into some trouble.
And good looking kid himself.
Yep.
I forget. Yeah, I think it's again. I think it's. Let me take a quick look again, because I do have the cast and stuff. I do believe it's James. James Marshall, James Hurley, James Marshall, who plays James Hurley. James Marshall is a good looking guy, so again, can understand that, and that's another good reference there. And now, since we finished the episode, and looks like we will be able to finish within the hour, to favorite characters. Basically I forgot one little snippet I forgot to add. When they're done when Cooper was at the police station, I remember Sheriff Truman goes to Jocelyn Packard, and they embrace each other, like they're in a relationship, but they talk about Laura Palmer's murder, and this also becomes a thing within the next couple episodes too, where they're together, and then all of a sudden you have Catherine Martell talking to somebody on the other line who you don't know, and she's like, "Yes, he's back here again with her." Yeah, I'll make sure to keep an eye on it, and then she hangs up the phone. So dealings aplenty going on that we have no idea. So
Plus, we also had another fun scene of Agent Cooper just geeking out over the trees and the food, and
yeah.
it's just it's really fun to just see him nerd out over this small town.
Oh, of course. Well, again, that's the quirkiness of the show that David Lynch and Mark Frost have in there, which is great, and it really is a great placeholder before the dark crap starts happening. Because when this show gets dark, folks, it gets pretty dark.
I wonder if his coffee is also a precog, just like a certain individual who gets deadly premonitions from his morning Joe.
Well, remember, like with sudden impact, ask. I forget what the DA's name is, but ask him if coffee's psychic.
Look at it, Zach. Just as clear as the morning day. F and K in the coffee. Never fails.
Yep. But basically, like I said, to the characters, obviously, for me, it's a no-brainer. Probably several characters I'll mention because I thought there were several good performances. Probably not all the way through, but there were moments where you could see this cast really bringing it out. Obviously, I'm going to say Kyle MacLachlan, Special Agent Dale Cooper. You got to give it to him because such a great quirky performance. But then when he needs to be serious, he's good at getting serious. I mean, you can tell this is a young FBI agent, but a guy who's already way wet behind the ears and a guy who's done it. So I got to give it to him. Secondary main character, Michael Ontkean, Sherry Harry S. Truman. Great guy too, a guy who's willing to work with people, a guy who literally cares about the town, and has a great, strong air of authority himself. Let's see, another guy I'll mention, since this was a big cast, I have to also give it up to, he's billed forth in the show here, Dana Ashbrook, Bobby Briggs, for the somewhat bad boy football, no, not the somewhat bad boy, the bad boy football player. Again, you believe him when he talks about Laura, but just his hatred of James and how that came out in the first episode, really well done. And that whole, his looking at James in the jail cell, that predatory scream, I know it was probably sound augmented, but that the demonic sound, but either way, how he acted that and went with it, very good. And then these two I'll put as dark horse favorites, because I'll get to my final two who I thought were really good. My two dark horse favorites, I got to give it to James Marshall, James Hurley, and Laura Flynn Boyle, Donna Hayward, because they acted pretty good in the episode. They were good, but when they first learn of Laura's death, that's why I got to put them as dark horse favorites. James breaking that pencil, and then Donna, Laura Flynn Boyle just crying. Even before they announced Laura was dead, that she knew. Really well done. Really well. Because people say, oh, well, that stuff's easy to pull off. No. You have to make sure you get worked up in the right moments to pull off those looks or to get that emotionally invested. Sometimes some people can do it easy. Sometimes it's not that easy. So that's why you got to give it to those two actors. They did that very well for those scenes. Plus, the final scene where they got together in the show, too, was really well done, too. And James telling Donna about what Laura was into, just, you could see that Laura, well, not to get it, but this is Laura Palmer. She's filled with secrets. Basically, that's true. She's filled with secrets.
What is a Laura Palmer? A miserable little pile of secrets.
Yes, and then sadly, because I have to give it to them. Basically, Ray Wise, Leland Palmer, and Grace Zabriskie, who did Sarah Palmer. When they both find out Laura is dead, their reactions and how they're reacting, as any mother and father would, heart-wrenching and heartbreaking. And I have to give it to those two for the final thing because, damn. I know some people say it's melodramatic and overdone, but it still gets me to this day because it's
I thought it was perfect.
See, that's what I think too. Because And believe me, this is one of my friends who said, yeah, you get tired of him crying over Laura Palmer, and I'm like, again, small town, you can sort of get where they're getting at it with all that. So it's like, that's why I understand, and that's why it still gets me, because again, if we all want to have children one day, or if you do have children, and if it's only one child, just imagine when you lose your only daughter. That's got to suck.
I mean, not to drop spoilers or nothing, but shed your tears now, Leland. You're not going to be able to do so later.
Oh, yeah, well, of course, of course. And, that's mine. Jarek, do you have anything different to add, or
Well,
what do you
for
think?
number one, I'm going to have to give a tie to both Kyle MacLachlan and Michael
Keen, yeah.
Onskeen because, I mean, on one hand, you got the perfect weirdness and the quirkiness of Mr. Cooper. On the other hand, you got best straight man Harry S. Truman.
Truman is very straight edge. I agree with you on that.
For like my second best dude, I'm gonna have to actually give it up to Ray Weiss as Leland Palmer because, oh man, just the dichotomy between his normal calm collected self and then when he gets the news about his daughter, just that hurts on a whole level.
Well, yeah, because you're right, that whole setup of where he's a lawyer, confident, sitting there with Benjamin Horne, about to do this deal for Ghostwood and the Packard sawmill, and then he gets to learn about his daughter, just him telling Benjamin Horne, my daughter's dead. It's like, oh man.
What was the name of that Mike Snake guy?
His real name?
Yeah.
Oh, that's he's not listed here, but that's I remember who that is now because I really wanted to use the all cast the crew. Let's click on that. I think it's Michael. Oh yeah, here we go. This is what we had last time. I think it's Michael. Yeah, Michael Hirschberger. I think he's a little bit more down here. Let's see. I know you were on here. Where are you? Oh, no, Gary Hirschberger, Mike Nelson.
Yeah,
Gary Hirschberger.
He was great as just a barely self-contained asshole. I mean, whew. Also, 10 out of 10, Tunnel Snakes rule.
Yep.
And as for like the ladies, I would definitely have to give it to whoever played Mrs. Palmer.
Oh, Grace Zabriskie.
Absolute god tier performance. You did very good. Whoever played Audrey was really good as well.
Sherilyn Fenn?
Yeah, Sherilyn Fenn was also just, I mean, everybody in this was great.
Oh, yeah.
And as for my third, I would kind of have to give it up to, who's the lady who works the front desk at the sheriff's station?
Lucy Moran. That is, she's here somewhere. That's, Kimmy, Lucy Moran, Kimmy Robertson.
I mean, you might think it'd be easy to play somebody who's that autistic. No, that's kind of difficult when you're normal.
Well, I never knew this as a kid, but you'll probably get this one, Jarek. And since we're finishing up the castles, we'll get the final thoughts here. But if you remember, you've seen Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, right?
Yeah.
That's the same person for Donald. That man over there is fine. Sure thing, Gloria. That was her. That's Kimmy Robertson. Because I remember when I recently watched the movie, I'm like, holy crap, that was Kimmy Robertson, and I had no idea as a kid.
And as for my dark horse, I have to give it up to Dr. Jacoby because again.
Oh yeah, I remember now. We don't need to look. Russ Tamblyn.
Yeah, enjoy the weirder side of Dr. Jacoby because once shit starts getting real, he's going to undergo a bit of a change, and who knows, maybe he might actually make a good addition to InfoWars.
No shit.
Hey, speaking of this shit, get that golden shovel and dig yourself out of it, am I right?
Which, it worked for him, but I mean, not that I want to get into it now, but I will basically say, I sort of think they dropped a little bit of the ball on Jacoby, whether that was Mike Frost and David Lynch, or whether that was the other people who took over the show too. That's the thing, but I really think they sort of did drop a ball because I was thinking the way they were setting him up, he was involved, but you figured he was going to be more involved. But it's still good. I don't hate it. It's just like, I think with that character, it was a bit of a lost opportunity.
I just have to imagine the only reason he was the bigger part of the show was he got jobbed out by Triple H. Why is his shovel golden?
All right, yeah. Well, remember, because Oh, I see the the golden shovel they use for wrestling all the time.
Damn it, Vince! Why does he have a golden shovel?
That's because I use a sledgehammer. But final thoughts on the show. Again, it is a very damn good pilot. I will say it is a great start to the show. It is not my favorite episodes. Those actually come later
Yeah.
with each passing thing. And sadly, they are, I think, the darker episodes, or the episodes that get really weird and are dark. But it's a great setup. It's great to entice you because you think, okay, this is a little weird, but you think it's going to be a regular, enticing murder mystery story. But no, this gets very, very, very like, where the hell are we going with this? Even we don't know sometimes.
You know, with how weird, mystical, and dark this got, there are times watching this show where I'm like, this is American Higurashi no Nako Kurani, for any of you who know what that is.
Yeah, Bob, even I don't know what totally that is, so hey.
So I guess that technically means that Dale Cooper must be the American magician of words.
Ooh. But no, that's actually a cool thing. So that's interesting for final thoughts in there, Jared, because I don't get it because I've never seen it.
You know, like magic, mysticism,
Yeah.
weirdness, people going insane and killing each other.
Yeah.
Federal groups getting involved.
Well, yeah, and one last final thought I will give out to this because our friend Gray Fox brought this up. What was I know it was Beautiful Dreamer, but what Yurichi Yatsura?
Yeah, Yurichi Yatsura.
Yeah, Yurichi Yatsura, Beautiful Dreamer. You can see where elements of David Lynch come out in this, but like both Gray Fox and Jarek told me, David Lynch was very influenced by anime, which is why some of his style has always been the way it is. And also, and I know people say, well, he just takes from anime all the time. I'm like, well, no, he takes elements of anime, but he is, if you guys see David Lynch and watch his things, he doesn't give you much on the movies or shows he's done, but he's a very spiritual person. And I'm glad, personally, to me, he's a very private person, and I'll admit, if he ever is weird politically, I hope I never find out because I don't want any more of my guys like Spielberg, what's the other one? Kubrick, and all these other guys like tarnished. I'll admit to you, a little side note here. A director who's really tarnished himself in my eyes is James Cameron. I still respect him, but bit of a loser now, I will say, because holy crap, the other guys may be liberal James, but here you go.
Yeah, let Skynet write the script for the next Terminator film. What could go wrong?
Oh, well, my friend Thunder Darkstone said, yeah, isn't that obvious?
But hey, it's funny you bring up Beautiful Dreamer, because if I remember, that was one of the anime films that inspired Mr. Lynch.
Yeah, that's why I did bring it up, because we talked about that when we watched Beautiful Dreamer together twice with Gray Fox. And it is a good movie, and not to denounce Beautiful Dreamer, it is a great movie, and I can see where they got it from, but it follows that similar style and element, minus the murder mystery, but other than that. But anyway, you guys got our thoughts on it, and the final thing on it, what do you guys think? I'm glad we were able to finish this in 2 parts, but again, have you guys seen Twin Peaks? Is it something you want to look into? I will also try to find different thumbnails for this, so I'm not always using the same thumbnails over and over if we have multiple parts. But just, give us thoughts down below and just tell us what you think, because again, as you've heard me and Jarek say, because I think it's the same for Jarek, this is, I believe, I forget, did you say this was your favorite show, Jarek, or...
It's starting to become one of my favorites.
All right, yeah, because this is... Yeah, well, like I said, 24 is 2, this is number 1, so yeah, it's like 24 and Twin Peaks, my top favorite shows. Now, there's other good shows out there, like one I'm watching that I know people say, have you not seen that before, is The Pacific, but I've never seen The Pacific all the way through, I've only seen snippets. Pacific is a great show, but I mean, I don't know, it's like the weird fictional melodical shows or shows that deal with spy stuff that are really good, I absolutely love, so Twin Peaks, yes, my baby there. But, yeah, just let us know what you think, and let's get a conversation going if you want. Until then, this is 012 Boku and...
Agent Jackass.
And we'll see you guys later, alright? Deuces.
Deuces.
Yeah, man.